Hey everyone, welcome back to the Dupe Dive. We're diving into something today that I think a lot of business owners are thinking about, especially ambitious ones. And that is expanding your business into the UK.
It's a big move.
It is a huge move. Yeah. But also really exciting, right?
Oh, for sure. It's a big step for any company to take.
Yeah.
But it's a really exciting one if you're looking to kind of grow your business.
Absolutely. And I think, it can be intimidating too, right? There's so many things to figure out, like new regulations and just wrapping your head around how things work over there.
Totally.
But luckily, we've got some great information here from INS Global to help us break it all down.
Yeah, they're a fantastic resource for anyone looking to expand into the UK.
Yeah. And what really blew my mind is how fast they can get you up and running over there.
Oh, yeah.
Like we're talking less than 48 hours.
I know, it's amazing, right?
Yeah, like you could decide on Monday, like, let's expand to the UK.
Hey.
And by Wednesday, you've got a team operational.
It's incredible.
So how do they do it? What's the secret sauce?
Well, a big part of it is that they act as both a PEO and an EOR, that's Professional Employer Organization and Employer of Record.
Okay, those are some serious acronyms.
Right.
I think for those of us who aren't, international business gurus, maybe we need a little more explanation.
Of course. Happy to break it down.
So what exactly do PEO and ER mean, and why are they so important when you're talking about expanding to the UK?
All right, so let's start with the PEO.
Okay.
Think of them as your HR department in the UK.
Got it.
They handle everything from payroll and benefits to making sure you're compliant with all the local laws and regulations.
Oh, wow. So they really take care of all the nitty-gritty details.
Exactly. It's like having a whole team of UK HR experts on your side.
That would be a huge relief, especially if you're not super familiar with UK labor law.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's the PEO. What about the EOR part?
All right, so this one might sound a little unusual at first.
Okay.
Basically, INS Global becomes the legal employer of your UK team, on paper at least.
Wait, so they're like the employer, even though I'm the one running the business?
Right, but you still have complete control over how your team operates.
Okay, but why would a company choose to do that? It seems a little counterintuitive.
I get it, but it's all about simplifying things and minimizing risk.
Okay, listening.
By using an EOR, like INS Global, they take on all the legal responsibilities of being an employer in the UK.
So things like contracts and taxes and all that.
Exact, all the stuff that can really trip up a company expanding abroad.
So instead of me having to go through the whole process of setting up a branch of my company in the UK.
Right, which can be a huge headache.
Yeah, tons of paperwork and legal stuff.
Exactly. With an EOR, you're basically plugging into their existing infrastructure.
That makes sense?
They already have everything set up, the legal entity, the HR systems, the connections with local authorities.
So I can just kind of hit the ground running.
Exactly. They make it super fast and efficient.
Okay, I'm starting to see the appeal here, but even with INS Global handling all of that, wouldn't I still need to at least understand some of the basics of UK labor law?
It's definitely a good idea to have a basic understanding.
Okay.
But the good news is that UK labor law is actually quite flexible.
Flexible? How so?
Well, unlike some countries with very rigid rules,
Right.
the UK system allows for a lot of agreement between employers and employees.
Interesting. So there's room for negotiation.
Exactly. So for instance, things like maximum working hours or overtime or holiday entitlement.
Yeah.
There are laws in place, of course.
Right.
But a lot of the specific details can be negotiated and tailored to fit both the company and the employee.
So it's less about one size fits all and more about finding what works for everyone.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, that's pretty cool. I like that flexibility.
Yeah, and that's where INS Global's local expertise is really valuable.
Right.
They can guide you on what's standard practice, what you can negotiate, and what to watch out for.
So they're not just handling paperwork. They're really like a strategic partner.
Absolutely. They're invested in your success in the UK.
I like that. Okay, so we've talked about the PEO and EOR side of things.
Right.
But what about actually hiring people? Does INS Global help with that too?
They can if you want.
Oh, okay.
You can work with their recruitment team to find great candidates in the UK.
So they know where to look and who to connect with.
Exactly. They have all those local connections.
Oh, that's awesome.
Or if you've already got someone in mind,
Right.
they can handle all the onboarding and paperwork to make them officially part of your UK team.
So they've got all the bases covered.
They do.
Okay, so hold on a second. All of this, the recruitment, the onboarding, everything can happen in that 48-hour time frame we talked about.
Yep. They've streamlined the entire process.
It's like magic.
Right. They've cut out all the unnecessary bureaucracy.
Okay, that's seriously impressive. But I got to ask, what about the cost? All this efficiency, and expertise. It can't be cheap, right?
That's a fair question, but you might be surprised to hear that using a PEO like INS Global can actually save you money.
Really? How does that work?
Well, think about it. Traditionally, setting up a subsidiary in another country involves legal fees, registration costs, finding office space, hiring HR staff.
Yeah, all that adds up.
Exactly. It gets expensive fast, but with INS Global, you're essentially sharing those costs across their whole client base.
Makes sense. And I'm guessing there are fewer risks of making costly mistakes.
Exactly. They're the experts, so they know how to avoid those pitfalls.
Okay, so I'm seeing the value here. I save time, I save money, I reduce risk, and I get expert support every step of the way.
It's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So for anyone listening who's intrigued by all of this, what should they do? Should they just book a flight to the UK and show up at INS Global's door?
Well, a trip to the UK is never a bad idea, but there's an easier way to connect.
Okay,
They have a great website and a team of experts who are ready to answer any questions you have.
perfect. So no
Yeah.
need to pack your bags just yet.
Exactly. Just reach out to them and tell them about your project.
Mhm. Okay, this has been really eye-opening. I'm honestly blown away by how much INS Global simplifies this whole UK expansion thing.
It definitely takes a lot of the mystery and the stress out of it.
It does.
Yeah.
But even with INS Global as our guide, it's still smart to have at least a basic understanding of how things work over there, right?
Absolutely. Knowledge is power.
All right, so let's dig into some of the key things businesses need to know about UK labor law.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Okay, first up, employment contracts. What's the deal with those in the UK?
Well, one thing that's interesting about the UK is that it's a little less formal than some other countries.
Oh, okay.
Like, you don't necessarily need to have every single detail spelled out in a formal contract right away.
So there's more flexibility.
Exactly. You're expected to provide the key information about the job in writing to the employee, even if it's not the full contract immediately.
Got it. So it's a bit more relaxed in the beginning.
Right. And most contracts in the UK are considered open-ended, meaning there's no set end date.
Interesting. So that provides more security for employees.
It does, but it's important to be aware of the notice periods required when ending a contract.
Speaking of notice periods, how does that work in the UK?
So it varies depending on how long the employee has been with the company.
Okay, that makes sense.
For anyone who's been there for up to 2 years, the minimum notice period is 1 week.
Okay. That's pretty reasonable.
Yeah, and then after 2 years, the notice period increases by 1 week for each year of service, up to a maximum of 12 weeks.
So the longer you've been with the company, the more notice you're entitled to.
Exactly.
Makes sense. Okay, what about working hours? I know the UK has laws around that, but I'm also curious about the flexibility we were talking about earlier.
Right, so the maximum weekly working time, including overtime, is capped at 48 hours.
48, okay.
But this is where that agreement piece comes in.
Oh, right. I see where you're going with this.
Employees can choose to opt out of that limit if they agree to it in writing.
So there's some wiggle room there.
Exactly. But there are some important restrictions.
Like,
Well, for one thing, it can't be a condition of employment.
that's good.
And the employee always has the right to cancel their opt-out agreement.
So they're protected from being pressured into working too much.
Exactly.
Okay, that's good to know. What about overtime pay? Is that always mandatory?
Not necessarily. Once again, it comes down to the agreement between the employer and employee.
Ah, I see a pattern here.
Right.
Lots of flexibility and room for negotiation.
Exactly.
All right, let's move on to something a little more fun. Holidays. How does annual leave work in the UK?
Okay, so full-time workers in the UK are entitled to 5.6 weeks of paid annual leave per year.
Wow, that's quite a bit more than we get in a lot of places.
It is, and that includes bank holidays, which are public holidays in the UK.
Oh, okay, so 5.6 weeks, including those holidays.
Right, and of course, part-time workers get a proportional amount of leave based on how much they work.
That's fair. How many bank holidays are there in the UK?
It usually works out to about 8 to 10 per year, but it can vary slightly depending on the region.
Okay, and are they always paid?
Typically, yes, unless the employer offers a higher rate of pay for working on those days.
So again, that element of agreement and flexibility.
Exactly.
Okay, now what about when someone gets sick? What's the deal with sick leave in the UK?
So the UK system is a bit different than some others. There's not a set number of sick days that you're legally entitled to.
Interesting. So how does it work?
Well, If you're sick for more than 7 days, you need to provide your employer with a fit note from a doctor.
A fit note. Okay.
Yep. And then there's something called statutory sick pay, or SSP.
Okay, what's that?
It's a set amount that employers are legally required to pay for up to 28 weeks.
Got it. So some employers might offer more generous sick pay.
Right. But SSP is the minimum.
Okay, so another area where there's some flexibility within the law.
Exactly.
All right, let's talk about family leave. What are the rules around maternity and paternity leave in the UK?
Okay, so the UK is actually pretty progressive when it comes to parental leave.
Okay,
Maternity leave is a full 52 weeks.
a whole year.
Yeah, it's divided into ordinary and additional leave.
Okay, and is all of it paid?
Not all of it is paid at the full rate for the first 6 weeks. Mothers receive 90% of their average weekly earnings.
Okay, it's pretty good.
And then after that, they receive either 90% of their earnings or a set statutory amount, whichever is lower.
So there's a bit of a drop-off after those first 6 weeks.
Right. What about the fathers?
Yeah. What about paternity leave?
So traditionally, fathers are entitled to 1 or 2 weeks of paid paternity leave.
Okay.
But there's also a newer option called shared parental leave.
Oh, I've heard of that.
This allows parents to split up to 50 weeks of leave between them, with 37 of those weeks paid at a set rate.
So they can decide what works best for their family.
Exactly. It gives them a lot of flexibility.
That's awesome. And all of this applies no matter how long someone's been employed, right?
That's right, which is great for newer employees.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the less glamorous but essential stuff, taxes and insurance.
The fun stuff.
Right. What are the key things employers need to know about handling those in the UK?
Okay, so the UK has a universal healthcare system called the NHS.
Right, the National Health Service.
Exactly. And it's funded through taxes, which employers deduct from their employees' paychecks.
Got it. So kind of like payroll taxes in other countries.
Exactly.
Okay, what about other types of insurance? Are there any that employers need to be aware of?
Yeah, there's also national insurance, which covers things like state pensions and unemployment benefits.
Okay.
Employers contribute to that as well, along with the employees' contributions.
So it sounds like there's a lot of responsibility on employers to make sure all of this is handled correctly.
Definitely. And it can be complicated, but that's another area where having a partner like INS Global can be really helpful.
Right, they're the experts.
Exactly. They know all the ins and outs of UK tax and insurance regulations, so you can be confident that everything's being done right.
That peace of mind would be invaluable. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of specific aspects of UK labor law. But what about the overall legal framework? Is there like one big document that dictates everything?
It's not quite that simple.
Okay.
Unlike some countries with a single labor code, the UK's laws come from a mix of legislation, case law, and collective agreements.
So it's a bit more complex than just having one document to refer to.
It is, but that also allows for more flexibility and adaptation within the system.
Okay, that makes sense. You know, one thing that's become really important in recent years is remote work.
Oh, for sure.
Has that had any impact on labor laws in the UK?
It definitely has. There's been a lot more focus on making sure that employees working from home have the same rights and protections as those in a traditional office.
That makes sense. You wouldn't want remote workers to be at a disadvantage.
Exactly.
But what are some of the specific things employers need to think about when it comes to remote workers in the UK?
Well, one of the big ones is health and safety.
Okay. How so?
Even though employees are working from home, employers are still responsible for their well-being.
That's interesting.
They need to assess the risks associated with home working and take steps to mitigate them.
So things like providing ergonomic equipment or making sure they have a dedicated workspace.
Exactly. It's also really important to remember that data protection laws still apply, especially when people are working with sensitive information remotely.
Right. So it's about physical safety and data security.
And then, of course, there are the general challenges of managing remote teams effectively, making sure communication is clear, and maintaining a strong company culture even when everyone's not physically together.
Yeah, those are important things to consider no matter where your team is located.
Definitely.
So it sounds like navigating the world of remote work in the UK requires careful planning and attention to detail.
It does. But with the right support and guidance, it can be done successfully, and it can even open up new opportunities for businesses.
Well, this has been an incredibly insightful look into the world of UK labor law. It seems like there's a strong legal framework, but also a lot of flexibility for employers and employees to create arrangements that work for everyone.
Absolutely. It's all about finding that balance.
And INS Global seems perfectly positioned to help businesses navigate all of this.
They really are.
Now, I know we've covered a lot, but I want to go back to that amazing fact we mentioned earlier, that INS Global can get your UK team up and running in just 48 hours.
It's mind-blowing, isn't it?
It really is, to think you could decide to expand to the UK, and within 2 days you have a fully operational team on the ground.
It's remarkable.
So how do they manage to do that?
It all comes down to their streamlined processes, their deep understanding of UK regulations, and their extensive network of resources.
So they've basically eliminated all the usual roadblocks.
Exactly.
They've taken what could be a months-long headache-inducing process and condensed it into 2 days.
That's the magic of INS Global.
This is a game changer for businesses that want to move quickly.
It really is.
Okay, so it's fast, it's efficient, it's cost-effective. What's the catch?
I don't think there is one.
Seriously,
They've really thought of everything.
this is amazing. I'm so glad we did this deep dive today. I feel like I have a much better understanding of how UK expansion works.
Me too. It's been really enlightening.
And for anyone listening who's feeling inspired and ready to explore the possibilities of the UK market, I highly recommend reaching out to INS Global.
Absolutely.
Don't let the perceived complexities hold you back. Contact them today, tell them about your project, and let them show you how simple and seamless UK expansion can be.
You might be surprised at what you can achieve.
You'll be amazed at what you could achieve together. This has been an eye-opening conversation, and before we move on to the next part of our deep dive, I want to leave you with a thought-provoking question. We've talked about the flexibility of UK labor law, which allows for a lot of agreement between employers and employees. This opens up some exciting possibilities for crafting a truly unique and engaging work environment. So here's something to ponder. What kind of company culture would you create if you had the freedom to tailor everything to your vision? It's something to think about as you embark on your UK expansion journey.
It's a great question to consider.
It is, because building a strong company culture is essential for attracting and retaining top talent, especially in a global setting.
Absolutely.
So let's delve into that a bit deeper in the next part of our deep dive.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. We'll be right back after a short break.
That's a really interesting thing to think about, all the different possibilities.
Yeah, it's exciting to think about how you can shape the work environment and create something really special for your team.
Definitely. And, another cool thing about INS Global is that they're not just focused on the UK.
Oh, that's right. They work in other countries too.
Yeah, they operate in a bunch of different markets all around the world.
So if a company wants to expand beyond the UK, they could potentially work with INS Global in multiple places.
Exactly. They have a really global reach, which is a huge advantage for businesses with ambitious growth plans.
Yeah, it makes things so much simpler than trying to figure out everything on your own in each new country.
Oh, yeah. Trying to navigate all the different labor laws and tax systems and cultural differences in multiple countries at once would be a total nightmare.
It sounds like it, but with INS Global, you've got that one point of contact, that team of experts who can handle it all.
Yep, no matter where you're headed.
That's pretty amazing, like having your own global expansion dream team.
I like that, a global expansion dream team.
It's the perfect way to describe it because they really do make it feel like anything is possible.
They do. They take all the stress and the guesswork out of it.
So we've talked a lot about how great INS Global is, but for those listening who are thinking, this sounds amazing, but is it right for my company? What are some signs that a company is ready to take that leap and expand internationally?
That's a great question. I think one of the first signs is that you're seeing consistent growth in your current market, and maybe you're starting to feel like you're hitting a ceiling.
Like you're outgrowing your domestic market and you need to look for new opportunities.
Exactly. Another sign is if you're starting to get inquiries from potential customers or partners in other countries.
Oh, interesting. Like the world is knocking on your door saying, hey, we want what you're selling.
That's a great way to put it. Of course, you also need to make sure you have the financial resources and the internal capacity to support international expansion.
Right. You don't want to jump in unprepared.
Exactly. But maybe the most important sign of all is having a strong leadership team that's truly committed to global growth and willing to embrace the challenges that come with it.
It's about having that global mindset, that drive to expand your horizons.
You got it. And that's something I really admire about INS Global. They seem to embody that global mindset themselves.
Oh, yeah, totally. You can see it in everything they do, from their diverse team of experts to their seamless operations across different continents.
They're not just helping companies go global, they're living it every single day.
And it's not just about checking off boxes. It feels genuine, like they're truly passionate about making a difference on a global scale.
I agree, their authenticity really shines through.
Okay, so let's say a company has all those signs in place and they're ready to go global. What are some of the key things they should be thinking about when it comes to building a company culture that can thrive in an international setting?
That's a really important question because your company culture is what's going to attract and retain top talent, especially when you're operating in different countries.
Exactly. So where do you even begin?
Well, I think one of the most important things is to establish a set of core values that are universally applicable and that resonate with employees from different cultural backgrounds.
So things like integrity, respect, collaboration, innovation, those are all values that can transcend cultural differences.
Absolutely. Those are the values that form the foundation of your company culture, no matter where your employees are located.
But they have to be more than just words on a page, right?
Oh, for sure. You have to actually live those values every single day.
It's about walking the talk.
Exactly.
Okay, so values are key. What
Absolutely.
about communication?
Yeah.
How do you make sure everyone is on the same page when you're dealing with different languages and time zones?
That's a big challenge for any global company, but technology can definitely help.
Yeah, we have so many tools now, video conferencing, instant messaging, all kinds of collaborative platforms.
But it's not just about the tools, it's about creating a culture of open and transparent communication where everyone feels comfortable sharing their ideas and perspectives.
Right, regardless of their language or their location.
Exactly. It's about making sure everyone feels heard and valued.
And that's where leadership comes in. Leaders have to set the tone and model those inclusive communication practices.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay, what about training and development? How do you make sure employees in different countries have the same opportunities for growth?
That's a great point. You need to have a global approach to training and development that recognizes the different needs and aspirations of employees in different locations.
So offering programs in multiple languages, providing opportunities for cross-cultural learning and exchange.
Exactly. And recognizing and rewarding achievements no matter where someone is based.
It's about creating a level playing field and encouraging everyone to grow and develop.
You got it.
Now, what about managing performance across different cultures? How do you ensure that performance standards are consistent, but also take into account those cultural nuances?
That can be tricky. You want to have clear performance expectations that align with your overall company goals, but you also need to be sensitive to cultural differences in how performance is perceived and evaluated.
Right, so it's finding that balance between global consistency and local adaptation.
Exactly. And having open and honest conversations with employees about those expectations is key.
It's about building trust and fostering a culture of continuous improvement.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay, let's talk about diversity and inclusion. How can companies ensure that their culture is truly inclusive and celebrates the unique perspectives of employees from diverse backgrounds?
That's so important. I think it starts with a genuine commitment from leadership to create a workplace where everyone feels welcomed, respected, and valued.
And it goes beyond just checking off boxes. It's about actively seeking out diverse perspectives and creating a sense of belonging.
Absolutely. It's about building a culture where everyone feels empowered to bring their whole selves to work.
You know, one thing that really stood out to me about INS Global was the diversity of their own team.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's clear that they're committed to diversity and inclusion, not just in words, but in actions.
It's not just a nice to have for them, it's a core part of who they are.
And it makes good business sense, too, because a diversity of thought and experience can lead to better decision-making and greater innovation.
It's a win-win for everyone.
This has been a great conversation about building a thriving company culture in an international setting. It's definitely a journey, but it's one that's worth taking.
I agree, the rewards are definitely worth the effort.
And I think INS Global is a great example of a company that's doing it right. They've created a culture that's both global and inclusive.
They have, and they're making it easier for other companies to do the same.
So for any business leaders out there who are listening and thinking, this is what I want for my company, I highly encourage you to reach out to INS Global and see how they can help you achieve your global ambitions.
Absolutely. They're the perfect partner for businesses that are ready to take their company culture to the next level.
Contact them today and tell them about your project. You won't regret it.
The world is waiting.
Okay, so we've talked about company culture now. Let's shift gears a bit and talk about the UK market itself.
Sounds good. I'm ready.
What are some of the things that make the UK such an attractive destination for businesses looking to expand internationally?
Well, for one thing, the UK has a long history of entrepreneurship and innovation.
Right, it's a hub for creativity and new ideas.
Exactly. And they have a highly skilled workforce, which is a huge plus for any company.
And of course, their location is strategically perfect as a gateway to the rest of Europe.
Absolutely. It's a real advantage.
So the UK has a lot to offer businesses that are ready to take the plunge.
It does. It's a dynamic and exciting market with a lot of potential.
And with the right partners by their side, companies can really thrive there.
I couldn't agree more.
You know, something I've been thinking about throughout this whole conversation is that expanding internationally is about so much more than just increasing profits or market share.
Oh, I agree completely.
It's about broadening horizons, connecting with new cultures, and creating something truly meaningful on a global scale.
That's what makes it so exciting.
It's about pushing boundaries and embracing new perspectives and contributing to a more interconnected world.
I love that.
And that's what INS Global represents to me. They're not just helping companies expand, they're helping to create a more vibrant and interconnected global community.
They're a force for good in the world.
And that's something I can really get behind.
Me too.
You know, it's inspiring to see a company like INS Global that gets the whole picture. They understand the complexities of international expansion, but they also get the human side of it.
Yeah, it's not just about logistics and numbers, right?
Exactly. It's about connecting with people and building those relationships across borders.
It's refreshing to see a company that values people as much as they value efficiency and expertise.
Absolutely. And speaking of exciting opportunities, let's talk about the UK itself. It's not just any market, it's a global hub for so many things.
It's true. The UK has such a rich history when it comes to entrepreneurship, and they've got a really highly skilled workforce.
And that strategic location makes it a perfect gateway to Europe and beyond.
It's a country that's just full of possibilities for businesses that are ready to grab them.
It is. And with the right partners like INS Global companies can really make the most of those possibilities.
Absolutely. They can navigate the ins and outs of UK expansion with confidence.
Now, before we wrap up our deep dive today, I want to touch on a thought that really stuck with me.
Okay.
International expansion, while definitely challenging, is about so much more than just making more money or gaining market share.
I agree. It's about expanding your horizons in a much bigger sense.
Exactly. It's about connecting with new cultures and creating something truly meaningful on a global scale.
It's about pushing boundaries and embracing new perspectives and contributing to a more interconnected world.
And that's what makes this whole journey so exciting.
It does.
So if you're ready to take that leap of faith, to embrace the unknown and create something extraordinary on a global stage, INS Global is ready to be your guide and your champion.
They are. They'll be right there with you every step of the way.
So reach out to them today and tell them about your project. Let's embark on this adventure together. Until next time, keep dreaming big and keep expanding your horizons.